I I click it.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, there it is.
I don't know what's happening.
Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
It says end broadcast. Click that.
Mm-mm. Click the video. It's on.
Oh,
We're live.
In the Black community, we were prepared by setting certain goals, objectives for ourselves. This was done primarily in the home, in the church, and in the school at that particular time because schools had a heavy reinforcement into our characters because they were Black schools. Schools were not integrated at that time. Do the best that you can with your life. You are unique. You have a contribution to make. You have something to offer. You have a talent. You have skills, many other things that you do have. Go on out there into the world and get them. Don't stay here in Farmville. There's nothing here for you. It's a retired person's town, little small place of this nature. But go on and develop it. College. If you can't go to college, take up a good skill. Skill trades were heavy then. We've moved away from that, of course. Now, but in the 50s, skill trades were very heavy: masonry, carpentry, electronics, auto mechanics, and many others. So we were encouraged. Pardon.
Then to your lack of employment, the young people had to go away from home. Every summer,
Right.
Most of the young people around here went to Atlantic City to work.
Relative to white America, we were taught that a lot of the values that came into being were set by middle class, let's say white America. In a way, we were to emulate them, because at this point we were at the very threshold of integration. Emulate them, take on many of these as much as possible, middle class values and virtues. That was a kind of inferior stigma placed on Black people. But you had to look through it to see exactly where the real truth behind it. That is a stigma of inferiority. You're not exactly where you should be. But you need to do this. You need to do thus and so, in order to be accepted in a white world, into a white culture. You see. They have their values, we have our values. But in a general sense, and the world was teaching this too, in a general sense, our values did not bear, they would tell us in general, as much weight as theirs. So let's try. What does this mean then? What do we say? Go to college, excel in school while you're here and wherever you do go. Appearance, reading, writing, many other things.
And then too, in this area, we were taught to stay in our place, whatever that meant, stay in your place, because our parents were afraid that if we stepped out of our place, we might get killed, we might get hurt, because they knew that because of racism here in Prince Edward County, anything could happen to you. So they were fearful. It hurt, but it brought about some self-pride too, because in school we were taught, we had role models, like I mentioned before. We had role models, and our teachers, instilled self-pride, and we just knew that someday, it wasn't going to be like this all the time. That someday we were going to be somebody. So you just kept that in your minds. And one day we're going to leave Prince Edward. We're not going to be in Farmville the rest of our lives, And for the most part, most of us did.
There were imaginary geographical boundaries in our minds as to how far we could go. There were imaginary psychological boundaries in our mind and emotional boundaries in our minds as to how far we could go, relative to the Black-white situation. So we learned to work within the confines, to be creative as much as possible, to make, as Black people say a lot of times, make do with what you have. And by this adaptability to this own inner culture, this is what brought forth many of the things, many of the qualities and the strengths. And it meant that we had to live beyond where we were. We were not taught just to watch where you're walking right now, just to look down right where you're in the 50s. But look ahead. There's something out there, Go get it.
I earned 5% cash back on travel perks through Chase.
All right. Greetings, fam. Let's see. All right. So peace and power to everyone who is joining in. Peace and power to you, Sister Crystal. First of all, how are you? Can you hear me, sis?
I am wonderful. How are you doing? Greetings.
Well,
I can.
well.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. Well, and like I told you all before, some other things are coming, so y'all stay tuned and keep tuning in for these lives. Definitely more to come. Peace to all the family. Sister Tiana, thank you so much for coming in. Sis Kiana, Naki T, Rose, y'all are so faithful. Just being honest. Peace and power to you all. Thank you so much for joining. So tonight, as you all saw from the title, we want to talk about integration and education. Integration and education. So much to be said about that. The video that we just shared was a minister in Farmville, North Carolina, I believe. I might be saying, but Farmville. Minister J. Samuel Williams and his wife. And it was a 1989 interview, and they were giving remembrances of what the school system was like in the 1950s and 60s when you had Black teachers, mainly in the classroom before integration. And so I want to start with this, family. We're going to talk about education integration and really break down, was it really as clear as black and white, the agenda to integrate? Did it benefit us? Did it do more harm to us? Right? But we want to think about at that time, one of the key things that stood out to me was both of them saying that they had representation. They had good role models then. They didn't necessarily, worry about looking down. They were looking ahead. They knew that there was something better for them, and not necessarily, even though they did mention, let's get away from here. They mentioned basically, a lot of what they learned had to do with them developing their skills and developing their moral character, as opposed to necessarily how it is now. Just get out of the hood, get out of your community and don't come back. So the perspectives were totally different from then and now. Sister Crystal, what's your take on that video? What did you get from that video before we proceed?
It reminded me so much of the stories my mom used to tell us, me and my sister, when we were growing up about integration, because my parents both went to integrated schools and from a small town in Arkansas. So my mom was bused to a school 12 miles away in Lake Village, where I actually went to school and graduated. And my dad went to another school that was about 5 miles south. In his school, it was all Black. The town he grew up in was all Black. So anyway, but it reminded me a lot of what my mom used to say. And one thing, because I worked on the calendar before I even saw that video. But one thing that stood out when my mom used to talk to me was they did teach values, standards. They had morals and a lot of expectations of the students. And like they said in the video, most of the people that taught them lived in the community with them. So they would see these people at church. They would see them at the grocery store. They would see them wherever they went. And at that time, we're still a tight-knit village, tight-knit community. So those were your second parents. And that's when school was actually a safe space. Seriously.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I fully agree. And also heard similar stories from my mother, of course, because she also went to integrated schools. My father as well, even though he, because back then, in those times, work was really important. And sometimes they didn't finish matriculating through school because they needed to quit and get jobs to support these large families, to be able to work on farms, right? Was it really even important to be in
you're
school?
Right, because my mom did say that their school year was kind of dictated around this cotton season. So in October and November, when it was time to harvest the cotton, they actually had to take some weeks out of school to help pick cotton. And
Absolutely.
then, of course, in the summertime, they had to help chop it, get the weeds out of it. So, a lot of it was dictated around economics too. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And so that was something that my father stressed, and rest in peace. He also said that when he was in school, one of the most important things that he gained, as opposed to him watching us being in school, he was like, there's nothing that uh in school now that does that instills that sense of pride. Even though he had to quit school and to work to help his family, he was proud of what he was doing. His goal was to be a man. The values that he was taught was be a man, support your family. Now, sometimes that causes some of our men to just be run to the ground, working, trying to prove their worth that way. However, even though my father did stop in fifth grade, he was very successful in life. Of course, later joined the military and all those things. But part of his values and being in an integrated school, the teachers that he had, that was their experience. So they shared that with him. Here's a way for you to travel. And most people, when they join the military, they do it because they're poor, they don't have the money, or for other reasons they want the military to pay for certain things. Okay, all right, that is
Yeah,
pretty
that
much.
was a lot of our elders and ancestors' reasons for joining the military was because of economics. I know most of my ancestors, the related ancestors and some of my elders, most of them did serve in the military. My dad was a veteran as well. So yeah, and like the elder said in the video, there was a there was more to school, going to school. They learned trades, they learned different skills and things of that nature. So it was much more than academics.
Mhm.
It was so much more than academics, and I was fortunate to have some of the teachers that my parents had when they were in school, because a lot of times when we think about integration, we don't think about the ripple effects of what happened and how many of our ancestors and elders actually lost their jobs when we the schools were integrated. It's like in the thousands, 38,000, I think was the number of just teachers, and even in the administrators was there were even more. So we never think about that part of it. I won't say never, but that's a part of the puzzle that we don't talk about when we talk about integration.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then we look at all of that and we come to now. My son says something very important. My 17-year-old, he said, well, because I asked him, he said, well, we were talking about, actually, he pulled out a photo album from high school. And, it had what was it called? DECA picture. And we had won an award for work study. What was it?
Mhm.
Work study or whatever it was called, cooperative education. I can't remember, whatever it was, like home economics or
Oh
something.
yeah, FHA, FBLA, all those groups. Yeah.
Right, right. And so and basically, this corny old picture of me, but he was like, why don't we have like stuff like that? Even though in the school that he has now, they have an automotive training station there where the children can get credits toward, that type of certification, right? They do have that there. But he said, why they do that, Mama? I said, why? He said, because schools back in the day when they were integrated, they taught us how to build a community. They taught us nation building skills. Now they just teach us how to come in here and build their nation, how to work for them. We were trying to, back then they were teaching us how to build our own. He said, now none of that. It's just, we want to outdo each other. He said, a lot of my friends will say, I can't wait to graduate and leave. I ain't never coming back. Some of them have said,
Mhm.
things that I won't mention on this live stream. But at any rate, I thought that was very powerful, and maybe that's why, something to think about, why you don't see too much of that in many high schools now, because the goal
And I
is to.
think, because I'm at a community college and they had the academic
Mhm.
and the tech side as well. And I think a lot of us don't realize that education is a business, and it's a big
Absolutely.
business. And so now those things that we used to get in school, like the shop classes and all those
Mhm.
things, they had transferred and transitioned over to the community college, the post education level now. So now
Mhm.
after school, you can go and you can learn this trade. You can get a certificate in welding and HVAC, all those things now, as opposed to learning in high school. Because I remember shop, I remember the young men, in Mr. Buckner's class, looking
Mhm.
at the automotives, everything like that. But now it's the after school, it's a post.
Sports.
graduate, not graduate, it's a business. It's a business. And I tell people all the time, I have learned a lot working in higher education. And I know now how big of and lucrative of a business it is.
Absolutely. And same thing for me. And so on that note, I wanted to just take a moment because we know how our people are, right? Let's talk about a little bit of, our qualifications to be able to speak on this subject. And I'll start first, family, just to kind of, go backtrack a little bit. I was formerly in grad school. I taught 8th grade English and social studies. When my children were smaller, I was also part of a homeschooling co-op where I taught, we didn't call it English, we taught language studies. And I was a teacher for all of the community families in that regard. My children attended as well. Later on, they wanted to go to public school because you want to participate in certain things. And my current career, we're not going to say profession, Brother Patrick. My current career is as a speech language pathologist. Working for myself some, but here lately contracting the public school districts, providing those services under that special education umbrella. So for me, one of the biggest things that I have witnessed in that regard is not so bad now as it was when I first started about 12 years ago, but the over-identification of our students for special education services. That was something that, it's still an issue, but because of certain lawsuits and things put in place and certain educational laws that have been changed or modified, that's not the case now because the checks and balances are there a little bit more. So that is my experience. And I also wanted to talk about the health and wellness fact, but we'll get into that in a second. So Sister Crystal, I know you shared about working at the community college, but there's so much more to you that I would like for you to share for many reasons.
Yeah. So I'm a librarian. That is my skill set. That is my career. And I started out in public libraries and I did a lot of teaching in the public library. Some people would not expect that. I started off in a small town in Arkansas, and then I went on, moved to Oklahoma City, and I worked at Ralph Ellison Library in Oklahoma City, and it's right in the center of where we live. And so I did a lot of work with the babies over in that part of town, the northeast side of the city. And I've been here in Tate County, Mississippi, Senatobia, Coldwater for 18 years. So I've been at the community college for 18 years. And I will say that our children are not prepared academically, mentally, socially, any type of way as a collective. Now, you do have a few that come in ready to rock, but most of them aren't prepared. And so I do a lot of work, not as much as I used to when I first started. I don't interact with the students as much as I used to. But I just see so much that needs to be done. And that's one of the reasons why we have Ashe Academy was because I became very concerned about 10 years ago. And I was like, okay, we got to do something on the front end because by the time they get here, it's almost too late. I won't say it's too late, but it's almost too late. And so that is where Oasis Literacy Center came from. And then Black Liberation Movement. And from there, we have Ashe Academy. So just the experience of working with our babies and our young adults, I study a lot, I read a lot, and yeah, so I could go on, but I won't. And I'm just cracking up. It's Sister Tiana because she says you are a personal. She thought you were a personal.
Yes, I am an SLP. That is my trade. That's what pays the bills. I'm not quite a personal trainer just yet, but I'm in the process. I am definitely doing the work to get there. But thank you, sister. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. But yeah, Sister Crystal, I'm just, I know people say, well, don't be plugging, but it's very, very valuable to the community. And I just wanted to let you all know too, before we continue, that speaking of the Ashe Academy, right now we are having a digital fundraiser where you all can purchase a digital calendar for the year. And as Sister Crystal says, she is very well read. She has been a librarian for many, many moons. And the calendars have a lot of information for our ancestors. and current elders, and some of us even now, what we're doing in the community, what has been done. So there's a great educational element to purchasing. Yes, to purchasing the calendar. It is very, very well done. And this year and probably going forward, it will only be digital. So the minimum donation for that is $10, but feel free to give more. It benefits the children of Ashe Academy. And someone just texted me and said they're gonna send me the money. No, I'm gonna tell her to send it to. People always do that. They want to send you the money. No, you're gonna send it to $ BLMMS or $Oasis L. Is that correct?
Lowercase L.
Okay, so
I can
that's
put
what
it
you
in
would
the
send.
chat.
Yes, that's where you're gonna send the money. Do not send it to Mila. Okay, don't send it to me. All right, even though I'm gonna forward it, but I want you all to send it appropriately to where it needs to go. Okay, and so with that being said, let's see. Right now, so that's kind of thinking about what integration and education looked like before segregation. Again, let's just reiterate, you had the role models. The students were taught more self-awareness. They were taught skills in order to build their own community up, right? They were taught manners, so many things. And again, they had that powerful representation of seeing people who look like them doing the things that they would be striving to do. Whereas you come to modern day public schools, well, I should be cautious because, again, I do contract with the public school system. Cautious, but at the same time, let's be transparent, because anything that we are discussing is for the betterment of our people. And there was a video that I was going to share, but I decided against it because, it was a situation that was, the video sis shared with us of students fighting in a public school. And, I guess administrators or teachers allowing it to happen, maybe because they, had this hue, I'm not sure. So it makes me think of the safety and the discipline that our children are being taught now. Like, what's the difference? Back then, they used to pull that ruler out, that stick or whatever it was. I'm thankful I never got any licks.
I got paddled once.
I didn't, sis. I never got any licks. And also, but my parents, they didn't spank, they didn't whoop me. They whooped my brothers though. I don't know why, but they just, like, for me. But I think it was because, don't get me wrong, y'all, I wasn't no perfect child. I didn't get caught, and I also learned from what they did. I'm like, okay, right. Don't do that, So I escaped all of that. So, and I escaped it in school, but nonetheless, then you had a discipline structure. But the difference before segregation, the discipline structure, it was done in love. It was done in a sense of community, as a sense of community, and keeping you within the community, training you, giving you better skills and values so that you can be a productive part of your own community. Whereas now, in the public school setting, when students are disciplined, it's to get you in line with that school to prison pipeline. It's to, I've already labeled you. I've seen that you can't do this or can't do that. So I know where you're going. And, this child will spend the rest of their school career being labeled and basically being pushed into that trap. Because, like you said, it's a business. So either you're going to be a worker or you're going to be a thinker or something. There's usually no in between, or you're homeless or forgotten about. So what is your thought on discipline in the school system now versus when there was segregation?
So I remember when I first started my first library job, a teacher came in. She was a seasoned teacher. She had taught in the segregated school system, and she was currently in the integrated school system. And I don't like the word integration, because I think we assimilate it more so. When you integrate, you bring parts of the culture together, and it's equally yoked, right? When you assimilate, you try and take on somebody else's culture and characteristics. So I prefer the word assimilate. But I remember her name. Her name was Miss Garnell, and she told me, she said, one of the worst things that happened to us was integration. Yeah. And she taught in both systems, right? She said the things that our children are doing now, we didn't even know anything about it because, like Dr. Ani said, our culture was our immune system. So when we
Absolutely.
integrated and assimilated into the school system, we left our values and morals behind and we started taking on theirs. And so they don't know how to do anything but punish behavior. They don't know how to nurture. They don't know how to bring out the best or actually figure out what's going on with the whole child. They don't do that. So the thing is now they have to deal with us in the only way they know how. And
Mhm.
so that's what it is. You know, when we were taught by us, we knew we loved. Like you said, it was come from a place of love. Now it's from a place of y'all some doggone savages, animals. This is what
Animals.
we're gonna do because because I remember I had a whole issue at the school system, and I asked the superintendent. I said, "So how does this solve the problem? I mean, what are you doing to where's the counseling? Where is the not just the discipline? I understand that
Mhm.
behavior has to be you have to, deal with the behavior, but where is it you just want to automatically discipline and punish someone. There's no healing in that. And he's like, "Well, we don't know. We just know we got to fix this problem." You don't. You're not
Yeah.
fixing it. So it's something that we really need to really think about as a community because it's not getting better, it's getting
Yeah.
worse. And um, we have a whole issue going on with family here in the Senatobia School District. We talked
Absolutely.
about it at the summit. And
Yes.
um, so we have to stop individualizing it and look at it as a
Mhm.
community issue and not just wait until it's
Absolutely.
our child uh
That's right.
that's being handled. But yeah,
That's
it's definitely a whole system at work. And Dr. Jawanza Kanjufu, which I have a couple of his books here, he talked about his study that he did. If a young male, black male can't read at his grade level by third grade, then he's more apt to go to prison. And so
right.
now they have built a complete industry around his research. So, and then it's no coincidence that here in Mississippi, they had a third grade reading test where if they don't pass the test, they are retained. And so, they had the numbers, they had the stats, and instead of investing more into making the education system a whole holistic process, they rather invested in prisons. So, that is so much that can be talked about and gleaned from this experience because I want to say this because when we talk about integration, not all of our ancestors and elders were like, come on, let's go. We want to integrate. Because I think it was Zora Neale Hurston that said, Black children don't have to sit next to white children in order to learn. We just
That's
need some
right.
resources. We just need the same resources that are
That's
provided to
right.
these white schools to our schools so that
That's
we
right.
can give a total experience.
That's right. You pretty much just summed up the whole show. Seriously. I mean, no, no, seriously. You pretty much just summed up the entire show because that's what it comes
Mhm.
down to. You know that one of the biggest things is, like you said, by the time they get to third grade, because before that, you're learning to read. By fourth grade, you're reading in order to learn. If you can't read, what's going to happen? Then comes the
Yeah,
behavior problems. And when the behavior problems come, what happens? Then they get labeled. Or, children are being taught things at home and they can't come to school and express it because it has to be in line with the curriculum, or the
right.
training, right? It has to be in line with that. So they can't have a voice, as in the situation with Family in Mississippi. Those some students they know more and they don't mind
And
expressing what they know. When we send our students to the public school setting and they enter with that sense of pride in who they are, pride, in their hue and everything, it becomes a problem because, okay, you're not getting in line. you know um Another thing that always bothered me, especially when I worked like with the elementary population, was how if you were to look at a prison documentary right now and to have a bird's eye view into an elementary school during lunchtime, during
mhm,
transitions, during recess, the children are walking
no
with their
talking.
hands behind their back, don't talk, get in the cafeteria, sit and eat. You got 30, 20 minutes to eat this food, don't talk, don't socialize, don't do anything. you know, and it's the mirror.
Don't socialize with one another. Now we're gonna socialize you, but you're not allowed
Absolutely.
to socialize with one another because whether I don't however you feel about Dr. Umar Johnson, he did say something that was powerful and profound. He said the schools are a socialization institution
Mm-hmm.
because your child
Absolutely.
may not know how to read, but they're doggone sure gonna know how to that Pledge of Allegiance and some other things like
Absolutely.
that.
You better
So,
believe it.
definitely a socialization process. I remember Brother KM was talking about, they homeschool their children.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sent their oldest son to public school for a little while. And they had to take him back out because he was coming home talking about video games. He wanted clothes. He wanted all these things that they don't even do. But when he got out there, I know I had that issue in my home. We don't do these holidays, but they're getting ready to have the Christmas program and they're getting ready to have they do the Halloween costumes and all that. So it's a battle just trying to send your child out to be taught.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And and just going back to that cafeteria, thank you. One last thing I wanted to talk about, the food, well, a couple of things, but I want to talk about the foods that are being served in school and how much they truly mirror what is served in the prison population. It's literally almost the same thing. So, like even when my children started public schools, they still wouldn't eat at school. They eat. I don't care if they took some fruit, they put something. They didn't eat nothing at school. It's filled with hormones. It's filled with all kinds of things, and some of it isn't even really food. It's
Right.
just packaged things that they can take the hunger pain away from. Right. And I had a conversation a few years ago with a parent. Another state, wasn't this particular state, during my travels, and this was a pic. I don't celebrate any holidays at all. However, this family, they did, and they were, it was a Black family, and they were going through a period of, I guess, homelessness. So it was around the holiday time, and I just gave some money. I bought some clothes for the children and all these things. And the mom kept saying, well, I don't know what we're gonna do, because if I can't, get them to school. Like, listen to this. If I can't get them to school, they won't eat. Now, she would say, if I can't get them to school, they won't eat. But she had 3 little boys, all elementary age. And all these little boys, for her to say that they were starving, all of them were obese. So what that tells me is, of course, yes, she's depending on the school, to feed them. But when she is feeding them, and it could be because maybe when she was in public school, she wasn't taught, she didn't have the home economics, or she didn't have it at home, because everything, we're the first teachers, mothers, she wasn't taught to eat at home, but she was feeding her children these unhealthy foods. And I think sometimes, wow, I just thought about that too. But I think sometimes with the foods that they're eating, and I've heard things, I won't just say I think it, I've heard things, I've read things, I've seen certain videos online about certain chemicals that are put into these foods, to the fluoride, of course, to calcify the pineal gland, so many other things that are going on that are, happening to sterilize our children, even though that must not be working because we stay pregnant. But anyway, yeah, so I guess that's the problem too. We don't have these low birth weights. But at any rate, so maybe it's like everything that they're doing to us isn't working, except the education system. That is definitely working, because many of us are falling short in that area. And so even if it's beyond, and I won't say beyond, because there are, places like the Nation of Islam who teach those, the MDT, the Muslim Girls Training courses, who teach, make sure that women can cook and sew and do all those basic domestic things, right? Because it's important. It's important to have that balance. That's a whole other show too. But at any rate, I think what I'm getting to with my long-winded self is that, women nowadays, a lot of women don't cook. when they have children. They go buy packaged things. They kind of continue what's happening in the school system, you know. So then you get these children like the 10-year-old. I saw a clip the other day. And I'm not saying that that's why, but apparently he has some type of behavioral order. And who's to say that the foods that he's eating is not causing that? But a 10-year-old shot his mother because she wouldn't buy him some Oculus glasses or something, and he was so out of it. Well, I won't even say out of it, but the sister said that he's been having all these issues. 10 years old now, he's been having a lot of behavioral issues his whole life, and that you know, as soon as the mother died, he eventually admitted, you know, that he did it to the aunt or grandma or somebody. And as soon as the mother died, he ordered them. So all that roundabout to say, I don't know if the food has something to do with it. You know, I'm not saying that woman didn't cook for her children, but these are things we have to think about when we're placing our children in the public school setting, when that is the only experience they've ever had. Again, my children have had the homeschool experience. They hadn't had the African Center experience, which I regret, but they're so much older now. They've had it through home, but they didn't have it through a school setting. So I just urge parents, if they have the chance, the Black parents, if you have the opportunity to enroll your children into a homeschool co-op and to receive an African-centered education, where they will be taught those, you know, those values and self-discipline, and learn about how to eat to live. Because trust me, that's happening in these African-centered schools. Those children are eating whole foods. And not only are they eating the foods, they're learning how to prepare those foods, right, and things like that, and growing. Thank you, exactly. Especially at Ashe Academy, there's a whole farm. You know, they have the opportunity to grow food and eat the food that they grow. You know, so you know where it's coming from. You know, I just think if I was starting all over again, there would be no other option. There would be no other option. So
yeah,
what do you think about the foods and clinical obesity?
I think, you know, because like you said, you know, you look at these children and a lot of them are not starving, they're just malnourished. They're not getting the necessary nourishment because of what they're eating. And some of it is just economics, and some of it is ignorance. And when you have those two together, it's a dangerous thing. And so that's why it's so important that, you know, we begin to teach this, because, you know, when I was young and didn't know, I was like, well, shoot, if this ground beef right here is $5 and this ground round is 10, I'm getting this. Not even, you know, you're just trying to make your dollar stretch. But now that I know how to shop and where to shop, I know that I can actually get more for my money with the healthier food. You know, we had this psychological block thinking that it costs so much more to eat healthy, when actually it doesn't, because you're going to be eating whole foods and you're going to be satisfied and full longer than you are when you're eating these empty calories. So a lot of it is due to not teaching. And then, as I said before, we assimilated into this culture where everything nurturing is considered a burden. So I ain't cooking. I don't have time. I don't do that. So now we had this whole proud culture of not being able to cook or not cooking. And then, you know, cooking and feeding your family is one of the most nurturing things you can do. It's one of the most nurturing acts you can provide for your family. And a lot of hiding that. So, you know, it's multi-layered, but it's like you said, a lot of it is malnourishment. These children are eating hot chips for breakfast and sodas and no water. You know, Kinsey and I had this whole thing around last night because she wanted more apple juice. And I said, no, ma'am, you need to drink water.
That's right. So, you got to drink that water.
Yeah, water is nasty. No, it's not. Where are you getting these ideas from? So, you know, yeah, it's something that, you know, the mother is the first teacher. And so I think once we reach our women, we can make a profound difference. But like you said, a lot all of these schools, these African Center institutions, they do teach nutrition. And because we get lost in the sauce thinking that education is just academics, but it's so much more than academics. So much more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It should teach you how to build. It should teach you to be a part of your community, how to come back to your community, not just leave and never come back and, you know, have that mindset of rugged individualism where it's just about me and I don't care about anybody else. Because in a sense, that's what And I won't even say that's necessarily what public schools teach, because they don't teach a whole lot. I'll be honest. It's almost like a matriculated babysitting service that they're getting paid very, very well for. Your child is worth a lot of money, especially if your child, and I'm just being honest, is receiving special education services. You have a very valuable child to the public education system. Whereas I think it might have been Bob Amin a few years ago. I'd heard him speaking on who also has an African Center school, the Uhuru Academy in Dallas Fort Worth, I believe, is where it's located.
He's in South Carolina now.
He moved. That's right, in South Carolina. Okay, but I think he also offers virtual courses.
Yes, it's all virtual. Mm-hmm.
So okay, so that's another one. But I remember him speaking a few years ago, and this may be a little bit choppy because it's been a while, but he was speaking about a student who was in public school, and they said he had all these type of difficulties learning and behavioral problems. But once he got to the African Center School, saw men, Black men filling those roles, the right type of love and nurturing and discipline, thinking that this child had special needs. He didn't, he just needed special attention.
Yes. Yes, and because that reminded me of something, and I know we kind of going over, but when I was watching Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, he said, I will give anybody a book if you can name 5 Black men teachers, not administrators, not janitors, not grounds workers, but I need 5 Black men teachers. If you have 5 men, they're probably going to be in the high school or the middle school, but you're not going to have any in the elementary school where they're needed the most. Yeah. And I thought about that because I didn't have any in the elementary level, but I had plenty of Black teachers, thankfully, give thanks. But yeah, I thought about that. And so what's an incentive for Black men to teach? I think it would make all the difference in the world. I know when we here at the center, when Jahi is here, when Brother Patrick is here, Brother Simbo, Brother Kenneth, when they come, it's a different atmosphere,
different energy.
Yes,
yeah. Children, they get in line when men come around. That's just, and not even so much because I don't want to say that we're talking about in a discipline aspect, but there's a certain presence, there's an energy there that children respect, that enhances their learning because they're going to be still. They're not, they're just like, hey, I don't want to play with him. Right. She's more nurturing. She's patient with me, but I'm not playing with him. So, and that's important. That balance is important. So, you pretty much covered everything. I'll be honest. That was pretty much everything that we wanted to cover. And we did go a little bit over, which I knew we would with this topic. But just going back to the subtitle, which said, was it as clear as black and white? The agenda of everything that happened after segregation, was it really clear? Do you think it was just clear, like there was a purpose to it? Or do you think that, much of what has happened is just played out because of how we have, decided to assimilate? Well, is it on us basically, or was it on them?
It's a combination of both. Because we've been trained to think that their water is wetter and their ice is colder. And so we don't have enough belief in ourselves now. Then during segregation, there was a belief, hey, like the elder said in the video, you got to be creative. You got to use that kaumba and do what we had to do. Right. Now it's like we're going to wait and let them tell us what we need to do. Or we got the white savior complex. We need them to come and help us do this, and that, all that. But because I look around, there are a couple Black school districts in this area. Black administration, Black educators, Black student body, but they're failing academically, and that is just bothersome to me, because if you may not be able to control the curriculum, but you can control the culture.
That's right.
You can control the imagery. You can control some things in that school setting, but if you believe the narrative that these children are terrible, they can't learn, they this, that, and the other, then how are you going to do that? So, we got to have a sense of pride of who we are, because it carries, my little space that I have in the library is like everything Black. So I remember everything. A couple years ago, a couple of young men came in, and I was helping them find some information. And one of them, both of them was work. They worked with Kara, my youngest daughter at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking around, and they were looking. And so one of them was like, "Man, you must be like an activist or something with all this stuff." I was
When
like,
you walk
"No."
in there, you're like, okay.
I was like, then we had a whole conversation about Black liberation. And so a few days later, he came back. One of them came back. Tay came back, and he was like, "Hey, this lady gave me some money at work, and I just wanted to give it to you so you can buy some books for your library up in Coldwater." So I was like, "Okay, that's what's up." But just having the imagery in there created a whole conversation around what it is that we do here in Coldwater, and just um having that pride, because I'm gonna say this, Kenzie, they were her class was doing a unit on uh plants and everything like that. So they had these definitions, and we were going over them, and one of the words was botanist and things of that nature. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
Kenzie, don't you remember when we were at Saturday school and we were talking about one of the ancestors was a botanist and all that? And she's like,
Oh,
Gigi,
yeah.
yeah, George Washington Carver. And from there it was on.
He knew.
And
See?
then this past week they've been telling time. And I was like, we talked about that at Saturday school a couple weeks ago, the analog clock, the
Mhm.
digital clock, and we talked about the Black man that created the clock.
Yeah,
And so she couldn't quite remember his name, Benjamin Banneker, but it helped her gain
absolutely.
interest in the assignments that we were working on. So that was all great. And I think, if our children were more exposed, like this book says, developing positive self images and discipline in Black children, I think that will enhance their learning process.
Absolutely. And as you all know, we will definitely leave the link to that book in the description section. That will absolutely happen. And you said something powerful. Get your children in an African-centered school where we can control the culture. Okay. We have no excuses,
Mhm.
family. We did definitely go over what we plan to do, but when you're talking
Yes.
about things that are better, are set to help your people be better and do better and get in better situations, sometimes time. Some people say it doesn't exist, but it's not a factor because you want to get it all out. And there is, as Sister Crystal said, there's so much more we could talk about on this. We could literally be here all night, but we have things to
Mm-hmm.
do too. We know that you all do. And I just want to say that I appreciate you all tuning in. There will be more to come. Y'all, let me, okay, confession time. I'm a confession. This was my first time trying to operate a StreamYard, and I still couldn't even do it solo. So thank you so much, Sister Crystal, for stepping in and
No, always
just
welcome.
helping me. You're teaching me, so I'm learning things too, y'all. I told her,
Mm-hmm.
I said I can get in front of the president and work out. Now, you want to work out? I'm gonna do that, but everything else is what it is. But I just appreciate everyone's time, Sister Crystal. Most importantly, I appreciate your time and
Yeah.
your valuable input. And as I said, we're definitely going to leave you all with some materials for solutions. I want to reiterate one more time, if you would like to donate to the Ashe Academy's digital fundraiser, the calendar fundraiser, please do so by sending your Cash App donation to $BLMMS. Please, we're not necessarily begging, but this is what you need to be doing. $10 is not a lot. So many of you spend it on things that I'm not even going to talk about because it'll be a whole other show and we ain't got time for that. But donate, seriously, donate. There's such a benefit to African-centered education, as you just said about Kenzie. Think about the sense of pride that she had when she was reminded by you, remember we just talked about this? And she's like, oh yeah, a Black person. Oh yeah, a Black man did this. Think about what that does for a child when they're hearing that, when they're learning that, and they're seeing that. And I guarantee you in the public school setting, they're not getting that. They're getting what I said in the beginning of the show, a curriculum. And if you don't follow the curriculum, you are labeled. You are on the track to prison or you are on the track to work.
That's
That's
right.
it. There's no in
Right.
between. So
No
let's
in
get our children absolutely on a track so that they can reactivate that creativity, so that they can be have a sense of value of themselves and their community restored. Let's do that. Let's really think about that family, especially if you have young children, you're just starting out. You new parents, get some information. It's there for you, and it will greatly benefit your child and those grandchildren that will surely come soon. So, closing remarks, sister.
I just appreciate you, Sister Mila, because when you came to us with this idea of doing the show, I was like, oh wow, that'll be powerful, and it is. It's
Yeah,
very powerful. You know, when
absolutely.
I was sharing the link, a lot of people was like, wow, this is gonna be great. This is
Mhm.
gonna be a powerful conversation because so many of our people know that these conversations have to be had.
Yeah,
Just waiting for somebody to do it, and I'm glad that you took the
absolutely.
initiative to do it and just keeping us on track with our wellness,
Yes,
because it's so much more than the physical wellness. Because when you're
absolutely.
feeling good, you're thinking well, you're thinking better, you're thinking clearer, and your self confidence goes through the roof. So yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Definitely
Oh, we
appreciate
got Brother Ola want to come in.
it. Hey, I'm gonna let him in for a minute.
We'll let Brother Ola come in and give his thoughts real quick, family. We're gonna get out of here, promise. Peace and power to you, brother. All the way
Yeah,
from
yeah, peace
London.
and love. Yo, what's up? This is
Read
a
it.
short notice. What's this short notice? I don't even know what the topic is. Number one, I've, I've just come off the phone and so forth. So my apologies. The call may get cut out because, as I said, brothers and sisters overseas, they always call me. I don't know what it is. They always call me around the same time. And you lot, especially in the States, you lot have 4 different time zones out there, and you lot all think, let me
Yes.
call Brother Ola, and it's always the same time.
That's because you're so important and you give such good advice and information. They got to reach out and talk to you. So don't y'all love that accent? Don't y'all love it? Don't y'all love it? Okay,
I
I just had to
appreciate
throw
that.
that in there.
I appreciate that. I think the sound is a bit echoey. I don't know if that's on my end or your end, Mila.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
You're clear. Everybody I'm hearing is very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it could be on my end. I'm not even too
It could
sure.
be.
But if the call does, if it does cut out, my apologies in advance.
That's okay. But brother, what we were talking about tonight, we were closing out. We were talking about education and integration. And if there was agenda behind it or not. And from your perspective, just real briefly, we're going to get out of here, family. I promise you we're going to get out of here. But this is a brother in the diaspora way over in London. How do you, what is your take on the public education system there? I'm not sure y'all can call it public, but the free, I guess, education system, it's free for so-called free, right? But makes money as opposed to African-centered schools there and homeschooling.
You talking about whether it's free to attend? Is that what you're saying?
No, what do you think? Do you think that it's a good thing to attend African-centered schools for our children, or should they be, matriculated through the public school system? Are there benefits?
Well, you're gonna know. You're definitely gonna know my thoughts on this. Me personally, because I've worked in those in environments. I've worked for the public school system as a learning support assistant. I've worked with closely with young people with ADHD. I've also worked as a mentor, and I've also worked as a teaching assistant. So I've done some years in that environment, and obviously for me working in that environment, it was more like a flashback of certain things I experienced in school myself, but obviously seeing it from a third eye lens and seeing how things really are as a grown adult. And me personally, the whole public school system to me is it's set up as it's basically set up as a trap. It's basically set up as a trap, and with African centered schools, I personally feel are more beneficial for our children to be placed in, because with African centered schools, you can you can educate the children when it comes to their identity,
Yeah.
learning sovereignty, as well as learning more about this, their identity, and certain skills which can like wire them to want to not just to do for self but also do for the African family, because you're obviously going to have these African educators placed in these environments who will teach them the importance of sovereignty and giving back to the village. Also thinking about maybe what infrastructures which can be put into what infrastructures can be basically
Brother Ola, I don't mean to cut you off, but you got these women so distracted.
Yeah. I'm trying to read comments, man. I know you're trying to see comments right now, but yeah, it's identity is imperative, and in the UK, a lot of the public schools have been changing. They've been being turned into academies, which now they're private institutions. But it's the same similar setup, but obviously now they're seeing this as something which they can capitalize off, and the school exclusion rates are quite high. It's just definitely an environment where, although there's been some brothers and sisters with certain programs who have worked independently, who've come into the school system or have spoken to people within that system to kind of introduce more Black history, but the problem still remains where a lot of these schools are failing our children because they can't basically adapt to the environment, because the setup is like, it's like the prison pipeline. So the setup, although people may disagree, it's still the same setup. You understand where I'm coming from? It's still the same setup, because a lot of our children they're discriminated.
So no matter where we are, it's the same.
Right.
It's the same setup. So having African-centered programs, institutions, it's imperative. It's something which I think people should investigate in regards to setting up more. We can't just, we need Sister Crystals times 1,000, globally, so we definitely need those institutions, because they can help decolonize the young minds of our babies, So
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, so we need to. I can't say that enough. We need to clone Sister Crystal 1,000,000 times over. Like seriously, truly, because what she's doing is, and what many don't know, I'm just gonna say, it's so selfish. A lot of things, is out of pocket. She's going above and beyond, because it's truly about the children. It's not about recognition. It's not about saying, oh, I have this school, because there are those who can start things, and it's just all about this and give me money and give me. Rarely does Sister Crystal ask for anything. Rarely does she even remind people to do certain things they're supposed to do. She's just going to get it done with a smile, with grace, So we definitely need more, because you missed the video that we shared in the beginning, brother, but it was an older couple, a 1989 interview, and they were talking about segregation in the 50s and 60s and how important it was, for them to have that representation and teach values. And so Sister Crystal is a throwback in that sense, because the children at the Ashe Academy, they're getting all that and more. They're growing their own food. They're learning about the foods they're growing. If they are returning to the public school after that program, they're returning with information and with a better self-awareness of who they are because they've gotten that representation. Whereas again, the public schools are
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing, and it's also
powerful.
legacy building.
Absolutely. And so, not only is her granddaughter benefiting, all the children who are attending are benefiting, and we need more children in Coldwater, Mississippi. You may never see this broadcast. I'm hoping that somebody shares it with you all so that you can get your children there. Get your children there. I mean, this is information that they won't get anywhere else.
Okay, am I still here?
Yeah,
am I
and
timed out?
we're really go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to know if I timed out because it started spinning.
Yeah, you're back on. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's a beautiful thing what you're doing, Sister Crystal, and we appreciate the hard work and effort you're putting in these things, coming up with the Arshay Academy, and same thing with Baba Amin, he's got his online institution as well, and we appreciate what you do, that it's needed. It's needed. I know a lot of our people are so used to the 9 to 5 setup where they just want to drop their children off and just let the enemy teach our children. And that's not to say we do have people who look like us in these institutions and so forth, but what stops us with coming together as a collective think tank and obviously sharing resources or putting money together to obviously start off small, whether that's starting off by creating curriculums and presenting them to the wider audience, the wider Nubian community online. Then obviously when we kind of reach a certain point with after financial status, then we can obviously put this money in a pot and maybe put the money into certain real estate to get these these buildings and so forth, where we can use that as an opportunity to at least have somewhere our children can attend and get the education, the right education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we got another comment from Mr. Smooth Living. We need to change the language. Institutions that bring back African language. Why we learn Spanish? They stole our language. Why not get it back? Ashe. Absolutely. And again, go to Ashe Academy and find out. What the kids say, y'all come find out. Get to Ashe Academy because there's so much going on. And that's the absolute truth. You see so many people, even online, talking about, I'm learning Spanish. Black people, I'm learning Spanish today, which that's ours too, truth be told.
Because it's an incentive in it. Because if you can speak Spanish, you can get that job because the Spanish speaking population is increasing, and so they need people to speak the language. So because they take pride in who they are. When I lived in Oklahoma City, I worked at Branch Library. It was Capitol Hill, and it was in the Spanish speaking community. And we would have a lot of multi-generations come in because the younger generation were bilingual. So they were interpreters for their parents and their grandparents because they retained their culture. They retain it. They speak both languages. We are the ones running around here not wanting to speak anything but this bastard English language. And now Spanish, so we can get that job. So that's a great point. And we do try to incorporate Kiswahili and some Twi here at Ashe Academy. So that's a great point.
I'm looking at the question, brother. Is it Mr. Smooth Living has posted? It's funny because over here when I was younger and I was in high school, the only language they taught was the only other language than English was like French, they taught and stuff like that. And I wish they because obviously for me I'm still obviously learning my mother tongue in sentences. I'm still learning my mother tongue in sentences, but I wish they was doing that when I was in high school, you know,
Yeah.
because I think when I got midway and stuff like that, I think when I even came towards the end of the I think it was year 11 or year 10, year 11. You lot call it 11th, 10th grade or whatever. I remember I walked in the exam, saw the paper, and just walked out. So, you know, I think it's you know, it's imperative for us to learn that. So it's really about, you know, us reprogramming our minds, because when we do that, then it becomes more or less our learned behavior, where if we keep that as something which is a must, then I think it will kind of motivate or just steer us in that direction to be more confident about you know, learning about our mother tongue.
And I think it's I think it's a family issue, because a lot of times the the parents aren't equipped. And so, you know, getting the parents involved and having them involved in the learning process is essential. And I know, you know, the schools say that they need that, but they don't really know how to do it.
Right.
Because that's not what they're equipped to do. But I think, you know, because it's a community, schools are part of the community, and the community is a school, and all that. We have a young man here in Coldwater. He was attending, and for some financial reasons, they he stopped coming. And you know, I like to give people space. I don't like to bug too much, but
Yeah.
his aunt reached out to me a couple weeks ago. She was like, you know, we got to start sending BJ back, because he rolled by the center and he saw the pictures in the window from our last Saturday school. We put our
Mhm.
pictures up of our dashikis and our Benjamin Bannekers, and he was like, they are doing stuff and I'm missing, and I got to get back up there. And so I told sis, I said, look, just send them. Just send them. You know,
That's
when
right.
they're that excited and enthusiastic about coming and learning about us, just send them. We'll figure out the rest. So, you know, just and just keeping in touch with the family and having you know, bring them to the center. You come, and so all of us have to learn.
Yeah.
You know, we can't just teach the children. I think, you know, as Brother Ola said, decolonizing the mind, we have adults that have to be decolonized too. And so I think when we figure out how to get the entire family involved in that process, we'll be more successful, because, you know, we do tutoring Tuesdays up at
Yes.
Coffee. And part of the struggle is that we are competing with the after school program that's in Senatobia, because they are funded. So the children basically just stay after school, do do their homework without any guidance or any help, and then they bus them home. So, you know, they look at that, because we've been programmed to not want to deal with our children. So it's a babysitting. To me, this is my assessment. It's just a babysitting extended day for a lot of parents. They just let their children stay at the after school program, and then they get home at 6 o'clock, and you know, it's just a couple more hours that they don't have to you know, be the parent. And so reaching those parents and letting them know that it's so much bigger than that, that they're missing out on learning, they're missing out on other things, because once they finish their homework at Kemet, you know, I have activities for them. So
Hmm.
this month we'll be working on Kwanzaa settings and things of that nature. So yeah, just trying to get the parents to understand that education is more than the academics. So it's it's a lot. Life skills and all those things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, family, that's it. That's it. Because y'all know we'll be talking about this all night.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
there's just so much to it. But once again, I just want to thank all of those who did tuned in tonight and watched the show. Brother Ola, thank you, because you're on a totally different time zone, for coming in and being brave enough to cam up and share your input. Like
Yes.
I truly appreciate that. I truly do.
Yeah, I
I'm just
appreciate that. Sister Mina, know I'm awake at this time.
I know, yeah, because look,
Sometimes,
I'll be calling you, right? So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So but I just appreciate you, family. I just, Sister Crystal, I'm trying not to tear up, because you just saying that you told that mom tell him to come on. You think about that. This is because I remember BJ. I remember him from the wellness weekend. He wanted to exercise. He was challenged. He was like, get it. Even when he got tired, one time he was like, whew. But he was on it. He was like, this woman is serious. He pulled me to the side. He was like, I know women work out like that. Like, yeah, we do, But he was challenged. And for me, y'all get so emotional when it comes to our, our girls too, but our young Black boys, because they just have so much against them. We have a lot of things for us as Black women, even though, we're still, where we are in this society. There are a lot of things that are set up and structured for us to be successful. Sadly, to be successful without our men, So when we can include our young Black men in any way and encourage them and continue to, pour into them and give them what they need, that means a lot to me. So, sister, I commend you for that. I can't wait to see BJ. I don't know if we're going to do another wellness weekend this December because it's been a little crazy.
Hey,
but
you're coming for Kwanzaa and Kemet, right?
I'll be there.
Okay, so I'm gonna do my I'm trying my best to get him there because I've been knowing the family for some years, and
he's so sweet.
He is very sweet, and his little brother too.
I didn't meet him yet.
So hopefully you'll see him during the Kwanzaa program.
Absolutely. I know I will because I'm sure going to be there. I already got arrangements made. I'm coming. Right. I'm going to be there. All right, Brother Ola, you're not coming this year. You're coming next year, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. I need to Black Jason Bourne my way in. So that's the plan. I'm hoping to be out there in September next year. In
that's around the summit time.
In regards to, and if I do come out there, I'll probably be leaving late October. If I do come out there in September, but
make plans to be there that third weekend in September. Okay.
No, I'll be because my solar return is around September, so that's why I'm normally in the States in September. But in regards to the tour event, which I was speaking to Crystal, Sister Crystal, on and off about, I'm still deciding.
Coming to Coldwater.
Huh? I know we spoke about because I know you hosted me, Sister Crystal. But I'm just saying, the tour event, I'm still indecisive whether I'm going to do it in 2023 or 2024. But one of those years I'm going to do it, as long as I need to get the paperwork straight and everything like that when I come back out, because US can be it's a bit challenging in these pandemic times, so yeah.
Oh, we gotta go. Sis Tiana talking about I'll host him. All right, family.
Yeah, me and Sister Crystal had this conversation, so
yeah.
Once again, thank you all so much for tuning in. And in regard to the public school meals and just your wellness and your health and everything that you got going on in your day-to-day life, family, listen, remember, if you remember nothing else, nothing, absolutely nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels. Take care of yourselves. Make sure that you are well, because if you take care of yourselves correctly, you can take care of others righteously, and we can continue to build this nation and do what we need to do, family. All right. Peace and power to you all. Good night.
Good night. Peace and power.